everyone, I got this book, The Magic Ice Cream and Other Stories by Enid Blyton. The stories are wonderful, some of them magic and some of them are rather funny. I read this one named Pull, Mr. Stampabout, Pull. It was very funny. Let me read it to you. Once upon a time, Mr. Miggle, an elf, bought a lot of cakes and some coffee with an apple. As he walked back home, he had forgotten one thing, that the basket which he had a hole in it. All the goodies which he had bought dropped outside. Following him closely with curious eyes was Elf Mr. Stampabout. He quickly stole the cake and the coffee. Mistress Trot saw this and then told Mr. Miggle, Look, Mr. Stampabout is taking your goods." At this, Mr. Miggle turned around and said, "Give me them back. I'll fight you for them." But Mr. Stampabout just said, "Ha! You cannot win a fight against me," he said. But then Mr. Miggle got an idea. He told him, "All right, I have this piece of rope. You tug from one end and I'll tug from one end. You stand here and I'll stand around that building over there." And so Mr. Stampabout stood on one end. Meanwhile, Mr. Miggle got ready to pull. But would he pull? No, not this elf. Instead, he tied it to a lamppost, watching the incident. So then he yelled, "Start pulling!" Mr. Stampabout started pulling hard, but he only pulled against a mighty lamppost. Meanwhile, Elf Miggle took his ingredients back and rushed back home. Mr. Stampabout got angry and pulled extremely hard. He fell over along with the lamppost and ran to tug away at Mr. Miggle's nose. But there was just a lamppost over there. How on earth? Where's Mr. Miggle? Thought Mr. Stampabout in alarm. That was when a policeman came across the corner. "Oi, why are you thieving and pulling down lampposts?" But it was Mr. Miggle, not the lamppost. Stammered Mr. Stampabout. "Don't be silly. I just saw Mr. Miggle walking away back to his house. He wasn't here." But just then, a man named Jim had just passed by. He had watched the trick and he let out a loud haw-haw. At this, Mr. Stampabout stamped around enraged until the police took him away and he was made to pay for the lamppost. Meanwhile, Jim told Mr. Miggle about how Stampabout had pulled over the lamppost. And so, Mr. Stampabout couldn't help but wonder how it had happened. Do you know how it had happened? Of course. The moral of the story is that brains always wins against brawn. Thank you.